Hey, Paul. Matthew was just on here talking to us about emotional readiness. So I'm wondering what you've been doing this week to try to foster that readiness with the break.
Well, there's a timing to that and a peaking to that. So really important that we go about our business and cover our bases at the same time. We're not winding them up before practice. That is first. You got to kind of probably fill the reserves. Like get rested, get ready, get right. That anticipation's coming. I think you can already feel it, and I think we have confidence that we'll be able to get to that emotional level. The longer that your break is, the more, I guess, anticipation. I don't think anxiety, but we're close to needing a game here soon. But we've tried to be as even keel on our non-game days and even on the morning skate days as possible. Calm, but ready.
We'll go next to Ken Weave from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Weaver.
Thanks, Greg. Good afternoon, Paul. Just on the housekeeping side, obviously this was special teams heavy. Is that why we didn't see Connor Hellebuyck?
Yeah, going back to the last series, we took that block of time. Connor's got a routine that he likes to run on his own with Wade Flaherty. So Connor was on the ice prior to practice today, and he did that routine. He likes to get one of those in. And we do it during the regular season at times when we've had bigger blocks. So he's not just skating. Some of it's just keeping your team ready and sharp. That means a lot of shots, a lot of pucks to the net, and he wants more specific work on one of those days. So this morning he gets that. The power play goalies get, for them, they're in the crouch an awful lot more. There may not be as many pucks as that. There's an awful lot of movement for them on the PK, so they get a good work day as well.
We'll go back to Ken Weave from Sportsnet.
A lot of players have talked about reinforcing the good habits. How do you do that when there's such a long stretch between games, or does that help the process?
Yeah, you know what? Where you pick the things you want to work on in practice, you can't practice at a playoff pace. I mean, it's not the same, right? We don't want to. We're not running, finishing every check and battling in the same way. That's a big part of that. Kind of from the first question, the emotional level gets you to that. Right now, it's all details and tactics and trying to keep the legs right. And for the first few days, just getting rested and getting over our last series. So we don't work on long durations, but we want to be sharp when we do.
We'll go next to Paul Friesen from the Winnipeg Sun. Go ahead, Paul.
Thanks, Gregor. Maybe just a quick update on Nathan Beaulieu, Paul. Where's he at?
He's here. He's post-surgery and rehabbing, but this is a long rehab. He's going to be into the summer before, I guess we're into the summer now, but he's not going to be available for us at any point in time, but he's back rehabbing with us and traveling with part of the group. He should be a part of it right now, and he is.
We'll go back to Paul Friesen. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, apologize if I should have known that, probably. Sorry. You went into the first series, obviously, with two players that you had to shut down to win that. How much more depth are you going to get and balance in either one of these teams coming up?
Yeah, I think and I don't think this was necessarily lost, but we didn't really approach it with an awareness of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl clearly, right? But we didn't necessarily play any of the other players any differently. So there is more depth in terms of scoring, and certainly when they're fully healthy, they're quite a bit deeper up front. But we won't necessarily have to. We weren't casual with the other players on Edmonton, right? So the approach with the top two. So if it's Toronto, it would be, we have just hit the 1 and 2 leading scorers in the league, and we would move to the 4th and 5th leading scorers, I believe, in the regular season. And if it's Montreal, you've got almost a different dynamic in terms of committee scoring. But even with that, we'll kind of approach every player like it's their best player and show the same amount of respect to all of them.
We'll go next to Murat Atesh from The Athletic. Go ahead, Murat.
Thanks, Gregor. Hi, Paul. Following up the trend of sizing them up in a way, just philosophically, I guess, I'm thinking about goaltending. On one hand, you have Carey Price, who for so many years is perhaps the best in the world at his position. And then Jack Campbell, who's just had a season on fire after maybe not being projected to be the Maple Leafs starter. Is there such thing as a version that you would value more highly or rather face?
Oh, even if I would, Rod, I'd never answer that question. I don't think that you game a goalie as much as you think. That you change your offensive game. First of all, your offensive game is only going to be allowed to do in some ways what the defensive structure of the other team. So you say, well, we need more breakaways against this guy. Well, it doesn't work like that, right? So we would look at a goaltender's tendencies in terms of how he plays the puck, how deep he plays in his net, how he moves possibly. But it really, it's not, I guess what I'm saying is you wouldn't say, hey, these kind of shots don't really work against this goalie, so don't take them, right? It doesn't work like that. You're shooting every puck that the other team allows you. If you get a hole, you take it. Doesn't really matter who's in the net.
We'll go next to Jason Bell from the Winnipeg Free Press. Go ahead, Jason.
Well, your answer to Marat there was interesting because you often wonder, and I should point out that it could be a moot point because by the time people read this, you may know who you're facing. But is it human nature for coaching staffs and players to would you have ever pulled for a team in the past, even though you're not going to tell me now, but would you have pulled for a team because you think your team matches up better?
No. Not if you've spent any time in the league, because you know how that works, right? You think, hey, we've played well against this team and we haven't played well against this team, and it doesn't matter, right? That's foolishness. You're going to get a different style of game, granted, out of these two teams, but we didn't play the same style of game that Edmonton played, and there's not a superior style. The strength is in each team playing its game as well as it can. So I don't say that we were necessarily better than the Edmonton Oilers in the game, but we were probably closer to doing what we could do as well as we could do it. So picking a team is foolish because every team in the playoffs has enough of a strength to beat you. And your task at hand is to play as close to as strong a game as you're capable of playing. It doesn't have to look like the other teams to win.
We'll go back to Jason Bell. Go ahead, Jay.
Thanks, Gregor. Just quickly, Paul. I mean, and we've talked about this ad nauseum. Unfortunately, the situation with the global pandemic is such that we'll have an empty building here for whoever you play. But you think about the playoff series that this team has hosted before. I mean, having a Montreal or a Toronto come in, I mean, it would have been it's a shame. You would have had a real special situation here with the All-Canadian matchup, wouldn't you?
Well, that and just the first round alone, the two home games that were played would have been the kind of games that, light a city on fire in a positive way. Excite them, a huge comeback and then a triple overtime. People in the building would remember that forever. Now, they probably still will. They just remember that they were sitting on their couch with their family or home alone watching it. And as soon as the game was over, they got on their phone. Yeah, I mean, it's the reason for being the Canadian division is also the reason why there's no fans in the building. And that's the double-edged sword. You get to play against the Canadian teams and have all that excitement, but the cost of doing that is you don't get to have anybody come into the building and watching it. That's too bad.